Good evening. I call the regular meeting of the Ames City Council for September 14th to order. Welcome, Council. Can you hear now? Sorry. I'm trying to avoid eating the microphone. All right. I call the regular meeting of the Ames City Council for September 14th to order. Good evening, Council, and those in the audience. Appreciate you coming. I'm going to start out with two proclamations, and then we're going to go into a presentation before we get into the consent agenda. Invite Chief Huff to join me up here at the podium. This is better, isn't it? Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. Whereas Suicide Prevention Awareness Month is intended to help promote awareness surrounding suicide prevention resources available in our community, and whereas the annual prevalence rate of serious thoughts of suicide occur in 4.8% of all adults, 18.8% of high school students, and 11.8% of young adults aged 18 to 25, and whereas suicidal thoughts, much like mental health conditions, can affect anyone regardless of age, gender, or background, and is often the result of an untreated mental health condition. Suicide thoughts, although common, should not be considered normal and often indicate more serious issues. And whereas we affirm our commitment to building our understanding of mental health and substance use disorders, increasing access to education, training, and treatment for our community members, and spreading hope and vital information to people affected by suicide. And whereas the focus of Suicide Prevention Awareness Month this September is to encourage people to take time to support the well-being of family, friends, and neighbors, and spread the message that good mental health is essential to the overall health of each of us, that prevention works, and that the treatment is effective. Therefore, I, John A. Hala, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Suicide Prevention Awareness Month. I call upon the citizens in our community to help raise awareness of the importance of good mental health to the overall health of our community. I'm going to invite Chief Huff to offer a few words, but before he does, I just want to mention that back in May, thanks to Julie Saxton, Chief Huff's support, and a lot of our staff, we had a mental health forum, followed by 3 months of, we had 3 individual mental health first aid training. The last one was attended by over 60 people, and we have people who are calling for more mental health training. We actually had a meeting today talking about that. And I just appreciate everything that the people in the community are doing to address this situation. And we're going to continue to work on this. And this was one of the items that we talked about back in May. And I'll just invite Chief Huff to offer a few comments and maybe talk about the mental health expo coming up too, or suicide prevention.
Right. Thank you. Julie Saxon, our mental health advocate, would have liked to have been here tonight, but she had a last minute conflict and wasn't able to make it. So certainly we at the police department have seen some of what's going on right here. Our calls for service for mental health calls are pretty high right now. And unfortunately, some of those also involve suicide. So we want to just encourage people to make sure that you're not only looking out for your friends, your neighbors, your family, but looking for those resources when you are struggling. And there's a lot of resources here in Ames. If you have the opportunity to take mental health first aid training, our mental health advocate, along with the mental health advocate over at ISU Police Department, has done a couple of those trainings. Those are really good ways to learn what things you can personally do to help those in need. And that will continue. And the Mental Health Expo is coming up, and I don't remember the date off the top of my head, but yeah. So that's coming up here in September, and we would also encourage people to attend that. Thank you.
All right, I'll invite Scott Shepard and Jason Boning up here to join me at the podium. Is there anybody else that's here from I have some other names, Jake and Derek. Are you guys? All right, great. Before I start, I think that this is long overdue, and we take for granted what these fine gentlemen provide for the city of Ames, as well as I'm sure you may have some women that work with you too. But we're going to have a proclamation here for Water and Wastewater Worker Appreciation Week. Whereas water is a precious and limited natural resource that needs to be protected and managed sustainably, and whereas a safe, dependable, plentiful supply of water and a reliable, environmentally conscious approach to wastewater management is essential to the health and well-being of all Ames citizens, and whereas water and wastewater utilities are a critical engine that powers the economic growth and vitality of the community, and whereas the water and wastewater workforce of the city of Ames have dedicated themselves to applying their environmental passion and commitment to scientific principles, the protection and enhancement of water resources in and around Ames, and whereas because of their dedication, these essential services are available to Ames homes and businesses 24 hours per day, every day of the year. Now, therefore, I, John A. Hala, Mayor of the City of Ames, Iowa, do hereby proclaim September 19th to 25th, 2021 as Water and Wastewater Worker Appreciation Week in Ames, and urge all residents to recognize the important role clean water plays in our way of life in Ames. And I asked, let's make sure I get it right. It was Jason. I asked, so who's in the hole when it's 20 degrees below zero and you got a busted water main? And it's him. And it's not by choice, I think. Maybe you get low man on the totem pole. I don't know. But the point being is that I have seen pictures of these guys down in the holes working on things in unconscionable weather. And we just owe them a debt of gratitude. And on behalf of the Ames City Council and the City of Ames, thank you for all that you do. This is long overdue. And we do appreciate all the work that you do. And if anyone wants to say anything, maybe you don't. If you don't, you're welcome to accept the proclamation and get some photos and go from there.
Accept it.
All right.
Thank you, Mr.
You're
Mayor.
right. Thank you. All right. Moving on to item number 3, and council and those in the audience, you may be aware that every year we enjoy having Iowa games come to Ames. And this year, or this coming year, there's a unique and new event coming. And I have asked Matt, right? Sorry, Matt, forgot your last name. And Katie from the Iowa Games staff to make a presentation. They're going to take 3-4 minutes and share some exciting news and what's going to happen next summer. So, Matt, I'll let you go ahead and start.
I'm going to run the computer, so I will stand up here and just thank you for inviting us to come to the meeting. My name is Matt Beatty. I'm the Chief Operating Officer for the Iowa Sports Foundation. And as you know, the Iowa Games has been in Ames for the past 35 years. It was actually our 35th year that we hosted the games. And so we also run several other programs with Iowa Sports Foundation, Live Healthy Iowa, Adaptive Sports Iowa, Iowa Senior Games, and the Iowa Corporate Games. And so, of course, most people know us for the Iowa Games. Very proud of that. And we're very excited to be hosting the 2022 State Games of America for the first time here in Ames next summer. And we've got a little video we'll show, and then we'll pass it on to Katie. She's a director of the Iowa Games. And so let her talk a little bit more about the event.
Gold. It's not an accessory or a trophy. It's a chase that pushes limits. And creates moments. Moments to breathe. overcome. This is your why. Why you polish and perfect. Why you sharpen armor and rise above fear. Feel those moments. To breathe. Aim and overcome. To be gold. This is the chase. This is the State Games of America. Go for the gold.
All right, and I know Matt kind of gave a little brief update of who we are as an organization, and I know many of you are familiar with what Iowa Games is, but just a little information about our national organization. So we are part of the National Congress of State Games, and there's about 28 member states and then 3 developing states. And as he mentioned, we're an Olympic-style sports festival for all ages, all abilities. Sometimes we have anywhere from age 3 all the way to 96. It just kind of depends on what event we're talking about. But then as part of this, every 2 years, the State Games of America is held in different states. We go out for bid for it. And so we are honored to have this event in Iowa. So we are working with the Ames CVB as well as Catch Des Moines to bring this event here. And it'll include gold, silver, and bronze medalists from other states. All those participants have to qualify in their local games to come compete. But the unique thing is that all Iowans qualify. And so we should be seeing an uptick in the Iowan participation as well for our games. And it also includes Illinois, South Dakota, and Minnesota. Those residents from those states can compete automatically as well because they are part of the developing states where they don't have a state game. So, and again, this is taking place in 2022 in July. So typically our weekend is about middle of July over 3 weekends. Well, this will be about 5 days in the last week of July. So it'll be kind of all the 3 weekends put into one basically for 2022. So we'll be hosting roughly 40 sports, and then we'll have about 15,000 participants is what our estimated participation will be, where typically we have about 12,000 athletes. So we'll be seeing about 4,000 to 5,000 athletes from out of state coming in to Ames and Des Moines area to participate in this event. So, and we are expecting to see representation from all 50 states. Our registration did open September 1, and we're seeing a lot of those registrations coming in. This is actually a map, I believe it was updated last Friday, of what our participation currently looks like. And the fun thing is that we have someone from Alaska already registered. So it's going to be kind of fun seeing those registrations come in, where they're coming from, what sports they're wanting to do, things like that. So we're excited to see those coming in and being a part of this as we go through the next year. And this is just a list of some of the sports that we will be offering as part of State Games of America. There are a couple that will be new that we don't typically offer, just working with their national governing bodies to bring those in. Events like Ninja, foot golf, working with their national event that they have and hosting that alongside this as well. So again, looking at about over 40 sports roughly as part of this event. And most of them are ones that we've typically done with the addition of a few new ones as well. As far as venues, like I mentioned, we're working with Catch Des Moines and Ames CVB. Most of these events are going to be held here in Ames. And just kind of wanted to highlight a few of the venues that we'll be using. We have a great partnership with Iowa State in utilizing a lot of their venues. Jack Trice Stadium and the South Sucoop End Zone will be using Jack Trice for our opening ceremony, which we're anticipating anywhere between 10 to 15,000 people attending that event alone. And that's kind of the big kickoff to our event, mixed with our athlete jamboree on the Friday before that main weekend. Cyclone Sports Complex, normally that'll be our track and field event. Typically that's a 1-day event. We're looking at this would be a 2-day event and an increase in about 200 to 300 participants in that event alone, just for track. Also, we work with Ames Park and Recreation with a lot of their venues. Another great partnership there that we have, working with River Valley Park, the Ice Arena, things like that for those events. And then as well as the community school district, utilizing their venues. So like we're using the middle school, pickleball will be held there. This year, we actually had a record number in that with just under 200 participants, but this event will bring in probably between 600 and 700 participants. So we'll have to utilize 2 facilities for that. But again, a great number to be coming into town for that event. So we're excited to host that. And it'll be over 5 days instead of where it's normally 2. So it'll be a fun challenge for us. We also have to utilize some private venues for this. And some of them we work with already and have been great partners over the years. Perfect Games for bowling. One of the new ones that we'll be utilizing is All Iowa TAC. Again, that'll be the second pickleball venue that we're using. And then Sports Iowa will be a new one as well, looking to have some of our martial arts events there. So that'll be a good addition to our venue lineup for the year. Some of the Des Moines venues that we'll be utilizing will be Wells Fargo Arena and the Mid-American Energy Recplex. Figure skating will be held at both of those. And typically figure skating is not a strong sport for us in the summer, just with the time of year and things. But this event will be bringing in about 700 to 900 figure skaters alone. So we're having to run 2 different competitions with their governing bodies, but we're excited to have that as part of the games. And then we're also utilizing Wellmark YMCA pool down there as well for swimming, running both a long and a short course, which normally we just do short. But that will have just over 600 swimmers as well in that, where typically we're maybe around 100, 115 swimmers. So that'll be another big event for us. And then using Prairie Ridge Sports Complex as well for our baseball event.
So anytime we have an opportunity to showcase Ames and Iowa State from the Convention Visitors Bureau standpoint, obviously we'll want to try to do that. This event, actually, we placed a bid in for this event back in 2015. It was supposed to be held last year due to COVID. Obviously, we were fortunate to be able to still get the number of venues that Katie just went through, both here in Ames and in Des Moines for 2022. The numbers that you see of the economic impact, traditionally Iowa Games is about just over $2 million into the Ames community. And with this event, that's a very conservative 3.4 million into Ames, extremely conservative. I think our numbers we hope that as they get back to the numbers that we saw in 19, both from a Iowa game standpoint and from the numbers from across the state, our other partners in the other state games, that the numbers will be increased from what Katie gave you earlier. So we really feel this is going to make a major impact into the community. Obviously, it's a longer time frame. And also, since we put this bid on, Ames has about 400 more hotel rooms than we did when the bid was put in. And hopefully we will have another property opened up that's been under construction for a while, but hopefully by July of next year. So long term, this is really a great event for not only for Ames and Iowa State, but also for the Iowa Games to give them a shot in the arm to really highlight what they do.
Just a couple dates. I think I mentioned already that we had registration open September 1 for this event. Typically, our registration opens March 1, so it's been a little bit of a different timeline for us. But again, it's been fun to see and fun to be a part of that. And then out-of-state participation, those individuals have until June 1 to register. And then that gives us kind of time to see where we're at with our participation and what kind of promotion we can still do in Iowa. I know usually a lot of people are waiting last second to register, but it's actually fun to see. We have Iowans registering right now for it. Our first participant was actually an Iowan, which was fun to see. So it's good to see them registering early, which is nice because that's not typical. So they're excited about the event because, like Kevin said, we've been planning it for quite some time as well. So. And then as far as just promotions, just a few things that we've done. This summer, we did have some of our staff members attend other state games, whether it be their opening ceremony or athlete jamboree, other big events they have, and just pushing things out and getting word out to those athletes to encourage them to come to Iowa for this event, for the unique side of it. And then social media and our email campaigns, we're starting out with newsletters, emailing our databases. Again, we have, Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, all the social media avenues as well, utilizing those to continue to push stuff out as much as possible. Just to get word out about the events to out-of-staters and in-state as well. And then also relying on other states to push information out to their athletes. One thing that we have done over the last couple of years is we have these golden tickets that we've been handing out, again, to all Iowans for those events, and then sending many out to other states for them to hand out to their medalists as they're qualifying. So they always have this in hand so that they know, hey, I qualified, I can come to Iowa for this event. So we have these. I have plenty. If people want them, just contact us, let us know. But we're just trying to get word out to everyone about the event. And then just a couple things on how the community can help us is, again, just spreading the word, whether it be sharing social media posts that you see, or just, by word of mouth, just letting people know that this event is coming. Some big things that help run our events and we can't do without is our volunteers. Typically in a normal year, we utilize probably just over 2,000 volunteers. But for this national event, we'll be needing more of those. So, if you know of people that are wanting to volunteer or looking for something to do, we're always looking for that. And there's various things that they can be doing, whether it be helping with check-in, admissions, swim timers, scorekeepers, whatever it is. We have a bunch of random jobs and duties that need to be done. But again, we can't do what we do without our volunteers. So helping to spread the word about that. And then just looking at partnerships, working to connect with the athletes, drawing people to your businesses, whether it be dining, finding deals that we can do there, get people into shops and things like that. We'll be looking for that over the next couple of years. So, if you have anyone, or like I said, business-wise, we're looking to connect with a lot of people to make it a really good experience for those athletes coming in here to Ames. And then I just wanted to get some contact information. If anyone out there has questions, me on the sports side, Corey Kennedy is our marketing director, Chuck, and then Matt, and then obviously with Kevin here as well. So if there's ever questions, anything like that, our information's on the website or here as well. Feel free to contact us anytime.
Any questions?
Very exciting.
Will be.
Well, on behalf of
We're glad that we can actually finally, do it. We've been planning this for, like Kevin said, for so long that it's nice to actually move forward with it and be going with it. So
I had the privilege of taping some opening comments, and they started telling about this event. I thought, boy, it'd be great to let the community know what's coming, next summer, and all the efforts that they're putting into, putting Ames on the map. So all you got to do is bring a game day, ESPN game day to.
we'll work on that.
Thanks for your efforts, and I don't think we have an appreciation of how much work it goes in to apply for it. Kevin, thanks for doing that, and we'll look forward to a big event next year.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to consent agenda. Council, I just want to bring to your attention that there was a Scrivener error. Item number 26, the amount should be $99,959.40 in lieu of, I believe it was 98,868. Should be 99,959.40. So, does council wish to pull any item from consent this evening? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve as amended.
Move approval as amended.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. We'll move on to public forum. It's a time that we set aside for individuals to address council on topics of city business. And I'd ask you people would limit their comments to approximately 3 minutes if they would. And I have 3 cards this evening that we'll start with. And we'll start with Doug Moore. We'll get to you, Richard.
Good afternoon. My name is Doug Moore. I am a airplane owner and pilot. We are hangared at the former Craig Tool hangar, currently. And for those of you that don't know the layout of the airport, that's the hangar that's all the way on the south end of the airport. Many people that aren't familiar with the airport, Chief Huff's guys tend to use that as their speed stop, which we love. And they have the gate, they have the door code, so if they have to use the bathroom, they're all welcome to come in the hangar. But I am here to talk about nothing negative at all. This is all positive. And I don't want to say I'm speaking for every pilot and airplane owner and hangar tenant at the airport, but I would say that uniformly, we are incredibly happy. And as a community, we're incredibly lucky to have Nikki Kyle and her team at Central Iowa Air. So on August 14th, Nikki, or the Ames Airport hosted the Iowa fly-in, and this is done every year. And like everything, it was postponed from last year. It was going to be a big air show fly-in, a number of things. Canceled it because of COVID, decided to downsize it. Nikki and her team did a fantastic job. We had about 50 airplanes fly in for the pancake breakfast and served her 200 or 300 pancake breakfast meals. And most of them were paid for, and all that money goes to the Boys and Girls Club. Did a great job with a very small amount of volunteers beyond her close-in staff. Last week, we had the game day, or the game day. I don't want to get into game day. That's a touchy subject. But we had about 50 airplanes come in the course of the morning. And I formerly lived in Iowa City. We saw this become chaos in the past at a lot of airports. Nikki's people, this was a well-oiled machine. Within 10 minutes, we had Desmond Howard, the guy that was the picker, we all can't speak his name, Ashton Kutcher, and 3 other jets all came in 10 minutes. And it is incredibly difficult to manage big aircraft like that. And as I said, it was a absolutely well-oiled machine. Couple of other things. Anybody that drives by the airport, you might notice the grounds have never looked better. And 99% of that is because Nikki and her team have done a great job. 1% is because I recruited my kids to go cut all the trees out of the fence line last year. And many of those trees, I think, were older than my kids. But we've really made an effort to improve the way, I think Steve Leith at one point said, that's the window to the community. We've really tried to make it more attractive, not just on the air side, but also on the land side. So as I said, I just came down to say we are so lucky to have Central Iowa Air. Nikki has done a great job. She doesn't toot her own horn very much. She's very humble. And I told her, I said, whether you want to or not, I'm coming down to council. So, but that said, since I'm here and I know a lot about the airport, do any of you have any questions about the
Can you
airport?
just come every council meeting? and do this?
Tim, I can
That'd
find
be helpful.
something happy to talk about
Yeah.
anytime. I asked you outside, I said, do my dogs eat you by your car? And Tim, who is just as positive as I am, said, beautiful dogs. I took that to mean they didn't try to eat you. But no, does anybody have any airport questions? Okay, well, I'll close by saying any one of you, I'm more than happy to tour anybody around the airport. I did that for Mayor Hala before he was elected. I think Bronwyn's been down there a few times. I'm more than happy to answer any questions or drive you around and point out the highs. And like I said, right now, honestly, there are no lows. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Doug. Appreciate it. Okay, Richard.
I kind of feel some of this is in litigation, so I don't know quite exactly how much I should be saying or not. I kind of feel Julia Saxon. I had to talk, Mayor Hale, you told me to talk to Jeff Huff and Julia Saxon, and I did. And they came out the next day, and they came out on Friday. And basically said I couldn't be over here. I don't know. I was really hurt by that, and it's like I did something that, I'm somewhat of a nudist, and I've taken off clothes at city council meetings before. The previous mayor, when she wouldn't let me speak at the end of the meeting. I don't know. Julia Saxon was sort of saying, by the way, Richard, we don't like what you're saying about Mayor Hala and her. And it's like, I'll be damned if I know what it was. I felt like I had a lot of issues with Mayor Campbell when she was mayor, but she started it. I mean, the first time I ever talked with her, she told me to go to California or Florida where people are just like you are.
Susie Peacher. I'm sorry, I forgot to ask people to introduce themselves and their address, and you may proceed.
I knew that was coming.
Sorry.
Susie Peter, 2011 Duff Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening.
I had previously sent to council, the mayor, the city manager, an overview and a study done by the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, which gathered information on various size cities, of the benefits and the savings generated by going to an organized waste collection system. A similar study, if done by our city, would be highly beneficial economically and environmentally to our city's commitment addressing climate and conservation. The city currently licensed 11 firms to haul garbage in the city. And of these 11, 9 companies are residential, have residential routes, crisscrossing each other through our streets and our alleys in nearly every neighborhood. I want you to consider for a moment the cumulative impact of these 25 to 30 ton diesel trucks that they have on our streets. And I need to clarify right away that by having this called organized collection system does not mean that there would be only one waste hauler for the city at all. I want to clarify that. And also to clarify, using an organized collection system means a city would be organized into collection zones. Each hauler retains their market share area similar to what they currently have. The benefits are to the consumer, to the hauling companies, to the city, and to our environment. The benefit to the consumer will be reduced rates should the city of Ames switch to an organized system. The benefits to the hauling companies are in reduced cost of diesel fuel that they use when each company has a specific, more compact zone. Also, they would reduce their vehicle maintenance. The benefit to the city and taxpayers is tangible in the reduction of the road wear. Reducing the number of 20 to 30 ton vehicles crisscrossing the same alleys and streets will significantly save on road maintenance costs. The environmental savings will be seen in the reduction of emissions, meaning we in Ames will have cleaner air quality. There are also possibilities to explore in separating and picking up of our recyclables, our compost, and our yard waste, which would be of great benefit, by the way, to our resource facility. A friendly reminder that the League of Women Voters submitted to you in 2020 a report titled The Ames Resource Recovery System. In that study, the city was asked to consider looking at alternatives to our current waste collection system and suggesting using as a model the Minnesota study, which I provided for you. The city's commitment in implementing the Climate Action Steering Committee indicates that this is the perfect time for the city to conduct a study on the benefits of an organized waste collection system. Now really is the perfect time. Thank you.
Thank you, Susie. I will mention too is that your email that you sent is, I'll mention to you that your email that you sent will be actually considered by council for potential referral to staff at the end of the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is anybody else wants to address council under public forum this evening? Seeing none, we'll close public forum. Move on to item 31, staff report regarding plans for inclusive crosswalk in Campustown. Brian?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. At the last council meeting, you requested information about potentially implementing an inclusive crosswalk design in Campustown, similar to the one that is installed downtown adjacent to the library. We recently refreshed the one in front of the library. It's the second time that this one has been installed, but we don't have a similar installation anywhere else in the community. So we've prepared for you the background information about how we might go about this in Campustown. There are a couple of issues that we would require some direction from the council regarding before we could proceed. So the first issue is simply whether you would like to see the same pattern style of the color bars in Campustown, or if you wanted to see something different. I recall when we considered installing the one downtown, there were a number of different options for the pattern and so forth. But if this pattern is acceptable to you, we're more than happy to ensure that that's what makes it onto the pavement. The second issue is in regards to the timing. Unfortunately, we're coming up on the colder weather season. That's particularly challenging from a temperature standpoint, and then also from just the wear and tear that occurs to the paint on the pavement when we have plows going over it and we have grit and sand and things like that and salt over the top of the pavement. We also have an issue here in Campustown that we don't experience exactly the same way downtown, where there's simply a lot more foot traffic in Campustown. And this paint does take quite a while to dry compared to typical roadway paint. Here we're using a consumer household paint, exterior latex paint. And so we need a full day of warm temperatures, direct sunlight, in order to make sure that we get the best bond. So we're proposing that if you're okay with it, we would wait until spring, sometime in mid to late May, after the students have left for the season, when there would be less foot traffic in Campustown. It would be easier for us to manage a closure of this intersection for 24 full hours, and also ensure that the temperatures are appropriate to get the right bond. The third issue is simply related to the costs and where you would like to take the funding from. The downtown crosswalk was funded from the road use tax fund. We believe the costs for this would be about $1,500 in paint, potentially less because we have a fair amount of leftover paint from the downtown installation, assuming we use the same color patterns. But we would need your authorization to use that funding source. So those are the three issues we'd like your direction on. It's the pattern, the timing, and the funding source. And I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Ryan, can you just share, it's in the staff report, but why do you use, instead of traffic paint, why are you using latex paint?
So when we initially tried to install the downtown crosswalk, we attempted to get commercial traffic paints, but we weren't able to get we weren't able to get them at a reasonable price. It was in the neighborhood, I think, of $40,000 or $50,000. It was our quote to install it, and we were successful by trying a household paint. It seemed to hold up pretty well for given the conditions. I think we had it in place for 2 years, and obviously there's wear and tear. It starts to fade out and get scuffed up. But there is also an option that we brought to the council the last time, which was the thermoplastic tiles that we could potentially obtain in these various colors. These last a lot longer. They are more expensive, but we have a project in the works for 2 years from now, I believe, to reconstruct the 200 block of Welch Avenue. And that's going to eat into that intersection a ways. And so that project, we could explore incorporating the thermoplastic tiles into that project to see if we could get them at a reasonable cost as part of the overall project. We could certainly do it as an alternate, so that if it was too costly and the household paint ended up being the better value, We would just simply do the household paint in future years.
I think the other option, wasn't it, that this is very color specific in terms of trying to match the respective flags. And so consequently, I think that those colors were not accessible or available in the traffic paint.
Yeah.
So consequently, had to use a more of a household paint in order to match the colors perfectly. So it's going to dry slower, and plus you have an awful lot of traffic on, according to your report, a lot of traffic on here for Cyride, and you're going to lose a couple days. That's going to be kind of a lot of congestion too.
Yes.
So, any questions for staff?
So Brian, if we were interested in looking at the thermoplastic tiles, that does not preclude painting it in the spring and letting the other paint run its course
Right.
before the project.
Yeah, the timing works out pretty well. If we were to paint this in the spring with the same methods that we use downtown, and we got a year or two of good coloration out of it before it started to fade pretty significantly, then that would be around the time that we would be working on the reconstruction project.
Any questions? Open up public comment. Is there anyone who wants to address council on this topic tonight? Seeing none, we'll close public comment. Council? Is there any motion or further follow-up conversation?
Well, I'm pretty excited about this project, so I will move option 1.
Which
Second.
is?
Direct staff to proceed with the design prepared by staff, plan for installation to occur in May, and authorize funds from the road use tax fund to finance the project.
Second.
Okay. Can we, would a friendly amendment allow you to do 1A and 1B? 1C would actually need to be a resolution.
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Any questions? Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Entertain a motion on resolution authorizing funds from the road use tax fund to finance the project.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you.
I would
Another
move that we direct staff to investigate the thermoplastic tiles as part of the reconstruction.
Second.
Do you have a comment on that, Brian? Or no?
I was going to comment on something else.
Okay.
I'll-
All right. Any discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed or abstaining? Carried.
I just wanted to make mention that at the last meeting, part of the direction was that the ex officio city council liaison would help organize the volunteers. I don't think Trevor was here for that meeting, so I just wanted to point out that.
So Rachel did reach out to me.
Okay.
I will say one thing about the time frame is it'll be interesting to see who's around and who's available. I'm sure there'll be plenty of people, but it might just be a little bit harder with finals and everyone leaving and whatnot.
That'll teach you to miss a meeting.
I know, right?
No. We knew you'd be willing to help out. All right. Anything else, Ryan?
Nothing further. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Moving on to item 32, hearing on proposal to enter into a general obligation urban renewal loan agreement for the indoor aquatic center. Steve or Dwayne?
I can't go over this, and Dwayne can answer any questions. We have before you the resolution we're asking you to pass after closing the hearing. This is to authorize the city to issue up to $21,200,000. I say up to. If we further design the project, we take bids and it comes in less, we don't have to issue that total amount, right? And it doesn't have a specific date we issue it, so we have a lot of work to do, as I try to point out, a lot of projects yet to do before we're going to issue the bonds. I do want to indicate that I think with your support, although this will not be voted on, a bond issue, we're still going to do everything we can to educate the public of the cost and be as transparent as possible of what we're doing along the way. So on second page of the staff report, which is on the agenda, I just want to emphasize that the projected cost, and these are estimates. Remember, a lot of estimates are here on costs. What the interest rate will be on the bonds could change in a year or two when we issue them. But according to our current estimates, if you ask, if we issue the $21,200,000, what will it cost the resident? I'll give you the residential home, not the commercial or industrial. There's different numbers there, but the residential home, the cost then of issuing that would be about $21.58 per every $100,000 of assessed valuation on your home. Now that's really to build the building itself. Now we're trying to be as transparent as possible. As you know, this facility is just the same as it was with the Healthy Life Center. We pulled it out separately. The operating costs and the deficit will be the same. The deficit on the operating costs will be about $400,000 a year, we're estimating. So I wanted to tell the public what it's going to cost them in increasing the general levy. This is after you have expenditures, you take out fees for entrance fees. Remember that, seasonal fees. We're going to have a deficit to operate in. Not unusual. Pools are never probably break even, and certainly indoor pools don't because of the high cost of utilities. Well, that will cost about another $6.92 per $100,000 of assessed valuation. So currently estimated, the total to build and operate your tax money, your tax payment, would be about $28.50 per every $100,000 of assessed valuation for a residential home.
Steve, could I just interject? You're talking about table 1, isn't that correct?
I'm sorry, it's table 1.
It's table 1. Okay, so this is the assuming no.
This is the worst case scenario, as you wanted me to do. This does not assume there's been some dispute or whether we should rely on table 2, which would be a receipt of $10 million in the state's reinvestment district money. So this is the worst case scenario. And I'm assuming then, even if we don't have our application approved, or if we don't receive $1 of that incentive after it's approved, this would be the worst case scenario what it would cost the citizens. And the council will still proceed with this project, even if we do not get the incentive money. Okay? But although this is what we're going to tell the public, we have to be honest too. There is a possibility, if we can work out a deal with a yet to be determined project and a developer team, by February 25th, we have to submit our application, our final application. Remember, we've been pre-approved for $10 million of rebate from state taxes, state sales tax, state hotel motel tax for a project, a mixed-use project that we're going to try to develop along Lincoln Way on the north side between Clark and Kellogg, okay? If we do that and we were to receive the total $10 million over 20 years, that's the projection, then the cost for a residential property would go from $21.58 to build it per $100,000 down to $13.14. Okay? Now, the operating cost will be the same. Operating costs will be the same, the additional $6.92 on the general levy. So the total there would be $20.06 for every $100,000 of assessed valuation. That combines the cost to build it and the operating cost to subsidize. Two different levies. So there's a difference in cost about $8.44 if we're able to realize the total $10 million. Now, obviously, if you think those are too ambitious and we only get $5 million, it will be less than that difference, right? But that's the good news. Okay, we have a lot of work to do, as I try to point out. Tomorrow, if this passes, you're going to say, when do we start building the facility? And there's a lot to do yet. We still have to work out a purchase agreement with the Iowa Department of Transportation for the property to the north side of Lincoln Way there. That's in a response to feedback we received in the Healthy Life Center when people had indicated a preference for this facility to be in the downtown area. This will offer us that. We'll be responding to that particular request. Now, the DOT cannot give us that particular property free, so we'll have to do a appraisal on it. And we hope it comes in with a budgeted amount. We have about $2 million in our pro forma for that, but that's yet to be determined. Also, the timing of it is very important. They have people that are actually being housed in that facility. There's 2 buildings there, and they're trying to budget funds to allow them in their current headquarters to move those people out. That may be up to 2 years away. We certainly don't want to wait 2 years before we start the project. So we're going to have to discuss them with the possibility for them to relocate temporarily, or can we start building our building on what would be the south side of the lot and allow them to continue to exist. Where those buildings are really will be torn down and become parking lots. So maybe we can work out, we can move simultaneously on it. Even before that, we're going to have to do environmental study. You know, you've heard about environmental studies that have to be done on properties. Make sure there is not any unknown environmental issue we'll have to deal with, which would increase the cost of development. we'll start with a phase 1 study, and then you move into phase 2 study if you find something that needs further analysis. So that has to be done. We're obviously, I think we're going to have to develop a budget for the center because, again, for transparency, people want to know. I told you what the $400,000 deficit would be, but they'll want to know what are your operating expenses, what are your revenues, and I know what the deficit's going to be, but people want to know what are the fee schedule going to be. Remember, that was an important issue to our Healthy Life Center, which will be some policy decisions on your part in terms of season passes, daily passes, and how much cost we want to recoup from different groups, right? So we need to do that for people before we get too far into it. We're always going to have to determine the final level of private donations. Remember, this pro forma is based on $10 million. Dan Culhane and the ADC has stepped forward to take the leadership role on securing private donations. Remember, the total cost of this project is estimated to be $31,200,000. We hope to get at least $8 million for private donations. We have the Guido Winokur bequest that sits in our treasury right now. We have $2 million there approximately. So that's the $10 million that reduces the amount we have to issue for bonds. But we need to finalize that at some point. We'll know that that effort is over with. Dan could maybe do a little bit better than that. I'm not sure we're going to do much better than that. But any amount we do more than that will hopefully reduce the amount of bonds we have to issue, or will buffer us in case bids come in a little bit higher. So we'll have to do that. And if we're going to proceed with our attempt to secure the $10 million in the state reinvestment district, we're going to have to enter into final negotiations. We're going to have to see a proposal, enter into final negotiations with the developers of the mixed use building. Once we find out what that's going to look like, we're going to have to hire that consulting firm again, our economic consulting firm, to update those numbers and submit it with our application on February 25th to prove that those projects are viable, and secondly, that they'll generate at least $10 million that the state has set aside for us. Remember, we asked for $21 million. They put us in line for conditionally $10 million. So there's a lot of work to do. We'll have to, I think I said, maybe I didn't, that we have to hire a design firm too to start the design of it and costing of the project too. That means the swimming pool, the aquatic center. So you can see there's a lot to do before we can tell you we're going to even begin moving one spade of dirt. A lot of work to do. But I think we're on this will be a good first step for us. And it puts us, I think if I'm reading the council correctly, even if the state incentive doesn't come through, we've informed the public that the council will probably proceed. They're legally able to proceed with the issue of the $21,200,000 in bonds and what the cost will be with the worst case scenario, I'll say, if I'm reading the council correctly, which sometimes I don't do, but I hope I am in this case. So any questions you might have on that? Other than that, I know you know this, but I want to make sure the public hears it, and Susan will do a good job of continuing to spread the information, be as transparent as possible, even though there won't be an election. We'll keep people posted. Any questions before you vote? Or hearing? It's a hearing, right?
Right. All right, I'm going to go ahead and open up the public hearing on this particular item. Is there anyone in the audience that wants to address council on this particular item? Seeing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. And council, you have in front of you the resolution that was prepared on behalf of the city by bond counsel, and the motion. I entertain a motion on resolution taking additional action on proposal to enter into general obligation urban renewal loan agreement.
Move resolution.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thank you, Steve. All right, we're going to move on to item number 33, hearing on proposed text amendment to remove all parking requirements for auditoriums, theaters, stadiums, and arenas within the downtown service center and Campustown service center zoning districts. And I see Julie and Kelly coming forward. And I believe that the staff report was well done and very thorough. I guess I'll just start out with, do you have any questions for staff on this particular item? All right. It's under a hearing, so I declare the public hearing on proposed text amendment to remove all parking requirements for auditoriums, theaters, and stadiums and arenas in the DSC and CSC zoning districts to be open. Anyone wish to address council on this item? Hearing none, declare the public hearing to be closed. Any comments from council? Otherwise, I entertain a motion on first passage of ordinance.
Move on first.
Second.
All right. Roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on to item number 34, hearing on integrated site plan amendment for 1409 and 1419 Buckeye Avenue. Julie.
Hello, good evening. So tonight, this is a two-part action item, a final plat and a site plan. And I believe on the agenda, it says the final plat would be approved with a condition of pending the submittal of the treasurer certificate. We did receive that. So if you vote to approve tonight, you do not have to make that condition any longer. This is part of the Shops at Duff, the rehabilitation of the Kmart site and future development of some commercial buildings. 1409 and 1419 Buckeye are these two outlots out here that are currently a grassy area. The integrated site plan lets a development of many lots be treated as one site, provides some relief of some site development regulations. And depending on how those things change and amendments happen, you may have to do a preliminary or a final plat. They are doing a final plat because they're doing a boundary line adjustment. This line right here will shift to the south about 87 feet, and that is to prevent the property line from running through a tenant space because that creates some building code issues. So that's really the only change on the final plat. The changes that we really need to talk about are the changes on the site plan. So this was Building B, that Buckeye Avenue at the bottom of the page that was approved back in 2018. This building is going to increase in size approximately 1,600 square feet. Really, the biggest change in addition to the size is the back of the building. As you can see, there were two driveways originally approved. This was all the loading area, the back side of the building. There was no driveway cut here, but this access was going to exist. So the new building, since that building did increase in size, there's only one access to this loading area off of Buckeye, and there is an access. And this does allow for necessary circulation and turning radiuses for the trucks. And there's a small loading area at this end as well. In addition to those changes, since this is a loading area, there is an increased landscaping requirement. So in addition to just the mandatory front yard landscaping, they've added other additional shrubs and trees and grasses to screen that as well as possible. There will be an additional 15 parking stalls put at this end of the building. And also with this amendment, we've increased the pedestrian circulation. So there'll now be this is still the old plan, I'm sorry. There will now be sidewalks that get you between these future buildings and this building over here as well. So you can walk along the front and then out to Buckeye without having to leave a sidewalk. That's pretty much the changes to the site plan. I can answer any questions. There are a few conditions of approval, but those are mostly things that get handed in with the building permit, confirming that the lighting code complies with our lighting regulations, mechanical equipment screened, things like that. And again, you don't have to place a condition of approval on the final plat.
Questions for staff?
I should say there were some architectural enhancements as well.
Yeah, could you review those? I do have a question on that.
So what did I do with them? I just had them here. So this is the these are the architectural plans that were approved back in 2018 as well. So you can see it's pretty plain back loading area, long flat facades. What they have done, I don't have a color elevation, but what they have done is they've put some columns, in the back loading area to break that up. They've wrapped the corners of the buildings with some architectural treatments as well. So it does provide some at least visual relief to those long facades.
One of the questions I had, and I guess it's for Kelly and you, Julie, is, Buckeye is a pretty, it's a pretty important street there, and across the street you have two very nice architectural buildings. And now we're going to have across the street essentially the backside of the buildings with loading dock, and I imagine probably some building services, electric, meters, transformers, garbage. I'm just, and maybe it really is not germane to the topic tonight, but I'm just curious. We talked about this with Fairway when they did their downtown, their long wall, and they introduced some opaque, glazing to try and get it to look more like it actually has some penetrations, through it. Is that something which really is, there's no really grounds to ask for that or expect that to be provided as part of the design, given the fact that you have, really nice buildings across the street?
Like with the Fairway example, I think the difference here is just the detachment from the sidewalk, and it's not that downtown environment where you were 3 feet away from the building. Here, what I had Julie put up is that landscaping plan. So I think you had a trade-off in the design here. So to split the loading docks, you're going to have a more prominent one at that southeast corner, the bigger area, but then the middle is going to have better landscaping than the old one in terms of the amount of space for the landscaping to mature. So I think that's really the trade-off here from the old plan. You have a little more prominent area, but the landscaping should be better, at least in the middle of the block. I don't think architecturally doing that approach that we did with Fairway is probably going to have a lot of substance because of the amount of front yard landscaping that's going to be between this and the building, where there was really no landscaping along the Fairway walls that we had downtown.
John, do you got some specific things in mind? I mean, I think people would find, we want to make this right for the long term.
So I think the other one is when we did the original approval, we were more concerned about the backside against South 16th Street for the future building C. And we did have some conditions to work with them on improving that architecture when it finally comes in for final approval. This side, we were relying more on the landscaping for it. And we don't have this situation really in town. So it's going to be, it is new to us as a city to have this kind of a big box building right back up against a public street. And so other than what we have to do with landscaping, there's not a lot of guidance here for us to say what's acceptable or what should be improved to be acceptable. The standard we're working from on the loading dock perspective is to screen as practicable. As you can see with the turning movements there, so all the squiggly lines are the truck movements to get in and out of this space. There's just not a lot of room to bring trucks into the site. And we feel like we're living with a small island there, and that's the best that we have in terms of screening options, unfortunately, at this corner to make this work in this pattern.
In answer to your question, Tim, no, I have no preconceived notions. I was just curious, what staff felt, if there was any opportunity to, work with the building owner. I don't want to give the impression that we're not excited about this development. This is really tremendous. I mean, what we're getting now from what we had with the empty, Kmart building, it's just more or less, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty prominent area as we get more and more, traffic there, and we got a brand new bank going in across the street. It's going to be visible. People, drive by it. And I understand that the trees are drawn probably at 10 or 15 years of age. When they first go in, they're going to be probably a fraction of that. But it was just a not trying to control anything. It was just a question in terms of it's going to still be pretty prominent there. And we've all seen backs of buildings that are in mall buildings, and they're pretty plain. So that's all. That's it. Okay. All right, I would, this is a public hearing, so I'm going to declare the public hearing on the integrated site plan amendment for 1409 and 1419 Buckeye Avenue to be open. And I would invite anybody who wants to address council on this item to come to the podium. If you would introduce yourself and your address, then you may proceed.
Yes, good evening. Chad Williams, 125 Carson Oaks Lane, Santa Rosa Beach, Florida, 32459. I really don't have anything more to add. Just thank you for your time this evening. I was here 3 years ago, just about on this same night. It might have been October, a little bit later, because it was cold and wind was every direction I turned. But we're ready to get this going. It's phase 2. We obviously have C and D left to do as well, and those will come in the near future, hopefully sooner than later. But other than that, I can answer any questions that you might have. I mean, we've worked with staff to try to get, a better plan going forward with what we had to amend, and I think we're there. We're bringing national tenants here. We got 5 big national tenants that everybody will recognize, and I think the community will be real excited about it. So with that, I can answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
Okay, thanks.
Chad, could you speak maybe just a little bit to some of the ideas that John raised? Again, we're excited about the project.
Yeah.
Are there some architectural things that could be done to?
It's. I know everybody knows the lifestyle center and the do new urbanism, bring it up to the sidewalk and create a four-sided architecture. It's hard in these situations with big box retailers. You can't put glass in the back of the buildings for obvious reasons, because you don't want to see inside their storeroom. Or if you do, it's called a spandrel glazing system, where it's black all the time and people wonder why the lights are never on. So, it's in this situations, it's tough. Granted, building C and D would probably lend itself better along 16th, such as Kelly said, because they'll be smaller on scale. And there could be some opportunities for some backdoor entrances and things like that I've seen on some smaller boxes. This is just difficult to do. And we tried to do that with pilasters and wrapping the architectural materials from the side down to the rear of the buildings, and with increased landscaping. Yes, it'll be, maturity on the landscapings, but once it's in and done, it'll eventually, get there and look good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah, I would say, I don't know, looking forward, that is, I think South 16th is going to be a really different topic, because that is going to have an increased amount of traffic.
Correct.
Because of the South Grand extension going there. And all of us have been up, North Grand Mall, and you see the backside of the cellular service, store and other things and all. It's just, that's a little harder pill to swallow along South 16th, especially with a brand new, multi-million-dollar bank going in across the street. And that's going to be a gateway into that area. So we would ask that as you develop your plans, give some consideration, that. I think Kelly's already mentioned it in terms of that area. So,
yeah, I don't know if we need a condition or not. I think we could adjust some of the landscaping to be more of an evergreen-based landscaping if screening was the priority. They really followed our normal front yard landscaping requirement, which is grass and shrubs as kind of that base 3 to 5 foot screening, and with normal overstory trees as your future detail in that area. So if you wanted us to, we could look at just swapping out materials. That doesn't change the building mass or the architecture. You have a really uniform roof line in the back based on that elevation. Again, you could have some variation in a parapet by 1 to 2 feet just to not have a uniform line. But other than those kind of basic things, I don't know what we could really do to dress up the back of the building in this condition.
This one.
Yeah, on this one, I think, as we said, building D and C have specific conditions related to those facades.
And I would argue that evergreens would be certainly out of character for what's done normally in street trees. Also it seemed very odd to have some line of evergreens there, and you don't have every place else has got street trees. So
when you brought up the store on 24th Street, which is what you brought up for, that was intentionally an extra wide area that was filled with a lot of screening materials, including evergreens, to try to totally shield the back of that smaller building. In this case, I think you have a bigger front yard, and you can succeed with normal front yard landscaping, which was a lot different than that building. But there is 2 different approaches as to dense screening versus attractive front yard landscaping.
And my point on that one was more or less along South 16th Street. You just don't want to have that kind of appearance that's up on 24th. here on.
Yeah,
on
so that,
16th.
I think, yeah, and we're all aware of that, and that was all part of the original approval. So those buildings will be different.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't have loading docks either. I mean, that's fundamentally the issue is dealing with the bigger loading docks.
Yeah, mostly those buildings on C and D will be front loaded. Right.
Pardon me?
They'll be front loaded.
All the ones on 16th.
Well, more or less. I mean, at this point, that's the plan because there's nowhere to put loading docks. So they'll have to bring materials to the front, stock materials, whatever that might be, which lends itself to better architecture along 16th. So,
well, just as we look forward to you bringing more things back, it just want to just kind of share that ahead of time that I think that's something that's really going to be important, as council, I believe, and to the community. So thank you for.
Thanks. Thank you all.
Thanks for coming. Anybody else? All right, we'll close public hearing and council, any further questions or comments? Entertain a motion on resolution approving integrated site plan with, I'm sorry, is there with conditions, Julie? I didn't quite hear.
There
There
are
are
still
some.
3 other conditions.
Mhm.
She just noted that the relationship to the final plat didn't need to be a condition.
Yeah, but the site plan just still
So
does have a couple.
alternative 1 still has 3 conditions.
Okay, so item 34A with conditions, item 34B, no conditions. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right, entertain a motion on resolution approving integrated site plan with conditions.
So moved.
Second.
All right, thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And entertain a motion on resolution approving final plat for Southwood subdivision 5th edition.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. All right, moving on to item number 35, hearing on Cyride 2022 HVAC improvement project. Again, we had a good staff report. Any questions for Barb? I see she's here. I don't think there's any questions. We'll declare a public hearing on Cyride 2022 HVAC improvement project to be open. Anyone want to address council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Entertain a motion accepting reported bids and delay of award to allow transit board approval.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Thanks, Barb. All right, item 36, hearing on nuisance assessments. Any question for staff on this item? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing on the nuisance assessments to be open. Is there anyone present wants to address council? And as a procedural question, is this to be continued or leave open? Okay, so I need a motion to continue the hearing until September 28th on assessing costs of sidewalk repair replacement and snow ice removal and certifying assessments to Story County Treasurer.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 37, follow-up from policing in Ames report. Chief Huff and Brian.
Good evening. Tonight, we're bringing back the prioritization of the recommendations that you voted for. There's 21 of them. I'm going to quickly just kind of go through them and explain where we are on each one of them. They're not in order of 1 through 21. They're out of order because we've done some earlier, and you'll see how we're going to try and do these. So the first one was to add the values of diversity, equity, and inclusion to our official values, and that's done. So that one's on the done scale. As modifications are made to the police department policies and revisions are made, we're going to update those, and that one's also done, and that was actually done very early on because our policies have been online for quite some time. So that's number 6 in the recommendations. Number 8 was as new laws are adopted at the federal and state levels, clarified by the courts, the city will continue to use Lexipol to review, update those policies. That one is done. Number 15 is the next one. This one is marked as done, but it's not quite done. So I apologize. We thought they were going to get that running today. We're waiting for a form to get uploaded on the backside through IT. And I'm hoping maybe tomorrow, hopefully by the end of the week, if that late, that'll be done. But that one is about the ability to file complaints or compliments to officers. Right now, anybody can call, email, stop down to the police department and file a complaint. But what we're going to do is we're also going to make that available on our website. So you can go to the website, click on a link, fill out an electronic form, submit, and that'll be emailed. Right now, it'll be emailed to me, and that'd be another way. That will also be available at the library on their civics page of links, which there's a few of those that are there now. And so we'll try to make it easier for people to file a complaint or a compliment if they would like to. So the other avenue for that will be, and we'll talk about this later, but the RPAC, once that's in place, people could also file a complaint directly with them. Number 12 is the next one, publish quarterly reports regarding the use of force statistics. You may have seen already that one, as well as the next one, which is publish quarterly summaries regarding citations, traffic tickets, and arrests. Those we're doing right now. So we have published both July and August monthly activity reports. Hopefully you've seen those. Those are available through social media. I put those out that way. They're on our website. There's a tab on the left side of our website that says monthly activity reports. You click and you can download those by PDF. They're also available at the library on their civics link. So you can go there and it's linked directly back to our page. So you can see them there as well. So now we move into the next category, which is quarter one. And the first one of those is to create
Sorry. You posted now 2 months, is that right?
Yes.
And I noticed that there was, with interest, that there was some additional clarification. Can you kind of talk about that clarification?
Sure. One of the questions that came up when we started putting our arrest data out was the differences between a discretionary and a non-discretionary arrest. And so I did clarify that this month when I put those statistics out. So one of the things to clarify was a discretionary arrest means an officer notices some kind of violation, they'll stop, they'll make an investigation, and they'll make a decision on whether they want to take an enforcement action. It's a kind of easy explanation of that. But non-discretionary arrests are what you'll find a lot of on our sheet. So any warrant arrest is a non-discretionary arrest. The officer doesn't have a choice if they encounter someone that has a warrant for their arrest, failure to appear, violating a no contact order, all of those kind of contempt of court sort of things. The officer doesn't really have a choice on whether they're going to take action on those. They're required to. In addition, you may see driving under suspension, driving while revoked, driving while barred. That's the same thing with those. If an officer stops someone and those and their license is in that status, they don't really have an option. Now, the one caveat I would make is a driving under suspension is actually usually a cite and release situation. They don't let the person drive away because they're not supposed to be driving, but they will write a citation and release them on a citation with a court date. Now, driving under revocation and driving while barred, those do have to go to jail. So there is a distinction in there about, I think if you look through them, you'll see many of our arrests are non-discretionary in nature. The officer really doesn't have a choice. Domestics would be another category in there. If you look at, we had a few domestic arrests in both July and August. If the officer can determine a primary physical aggressor, then they are required by code to make an arrest. And so again, not a lot of discretion involved in those. For August, you'll see a few more than in July that might be discretionary because we had 801 day. And so you will see we wrote a few citations for nuisance party, and there was a few public intoxication arrests. And generally those are discretionary. The officer will encounter those and decide if that's the right tool to fix the problem, then they may make an arrest. In other cases, we may have somebody come get them. So I think that's an important distinction to be made in those stats. And we'll continue to put those out on a monthly basis is what our plan is. I know you asked for quarterly, but we do most of our statistics on a monthly basis. And so it just made more sense to us to just continue that.
Well, I just want to say I appreciate the fact, and looking through them, is just the effort to not only be transparent, but also explain for the general public, because the point is, my understanding is virtually all the arrests were basically prescribed by Iowa code. You had to take them in. It wasn't like you were out doing things, and all of a sudden, well, we're going to arrest this person and this person. And the point is, I just think, as a general public person, I didn't fully understand that and appreciate that. But I think it's, as you can help more people understand as you go through, I think it's just helping you accomplish the goal you're setting out to do. So thank you.
Right. I think that speaks well to the goal of transparency here, is that I obviously need to do a better job of explaining to the public how we do the things we do and why we do them. And I think the more that the public understands that, the better.
Thank you.
Chief, while we're paused here on questions, number 6, number 12, and number 11 are all the ones with information that's disseminated in various ways. And one of my concerns was that we make sure that we've got this available to people who may not have electronic means of accessing things. Are these going to be in hard copy at the library? Or are they only on the Civics link, which is electronic?
I think they're only on the Civics link. We could probably figure out, a way to make a printed copy available. It'd certainly be available at the police department. We can print one off. They're 18 to 20 pages. I'm guessing they will continue to be that. So they're pretty lengthy, but I don't think there's any reason we couldn't try and make some printed copies available. Over time, we would probably get a feel for how many of those would be required, and we could probably figure that out.
Yeah, I just have concerns given what I've learned in the last year about lack of access to internet and technology. And so I would really appreciate us doing at least one hard copy at the public library, if not more, for those people who maybe don't have electronic access.
Absolutely. I don't see any problem with that. I don't believe the library, based on the conversations we've had, would have any problem. So we'll provide them some printed copies each month.
Thank you.
You bet. Number 16 is, next one down is create the Ames Resident Police Advisory Committee, the RPAC, that we intend to accomplish in Q1. And Brian's going to speak to that here in a few minutes, so I'll leave that one. Next,
Excuse me, one more
number
thing.
14 is conduct.
Q1,
Sorry.
that's fiscal Q1 too. As people, that was a question that was raised. Does that mean we're not going to start until January 1? It's actually fiscal Q1, so we're actually in Q1 right now.
Right now, yep. July, August, September. So that's where we're at. Number 14 is conduct periodic studies of traffic stop statistics. So you may know we're kind of in progress in that one right now. There is a bit of a error on the right side of the page. I somehow cut off the last part of the sentence. And so we are working on analyzing 2018, 2019 data right now. We're hoping to release that soon. We'll make it available at the library like we have some of these other things. Due to the pandemic, our 2020, 2021 data is probably just not valid or reliable. And that's what should have been at the end of that sentence that's not showing up. We'll have to evaluate 2022 and how things go and whether that might be. But that's certainly something to look at. But we hope to have that report out not too far from today. Provide periodic updates to the public from the Chief of Police regarding activities, current events, policies, and less understood aspects of the police department by way of print, electronic, and other appropriate means of communication. Again, we're looking at a Q1. I've started to do some of that. It's easy for me to post on social media. That's the easiest way to do it. But we'll have to come up with some other ways to make sure that those are available. I try to post now about some things. I did one before the football game. I'm trying to get some cooperation from the public and try to be a little bit funny. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. The next one down is number 7. Independent review of police department policies will be periodically undertaken by the Citizen Committee or the RPAC. And so we place that in Q2. We need to get the RPAC in place first. And then once they're on their feet, then they can start doing that. So that's why Q2. Number 13, create a new system to report bias incidents and publish this way data by way of print, electronic, and other appropriate means of communication. And in the note, it's proven a little bit more difficult than I anticipated to get this one done. We're still hoping to do it in Q2. The way our system works is you can't code things 2 different ways. And that's been the problem, is we could have a bias incident, but it started as a criminal mischief or it started as a harassment. And so that's what it would be coded as. And so we have to figure out a way within our system to be able to pick those events out by not looking for harassments and criminal mischief, because we'll get a lot of stuff that doesn't belong. So we're working through that. I think we'll be able to figure out a way to do it on the backside, just a little bit harder than I thought it was going to be. The next one, number 2, city manager will recommend for the fiscal year 21-22 budget a new full-time position, diversity, equity, inclusion coordinator. That's in progress. We're looking at Q3 for that. Number 5 on the next page, city manager will recommend for the 21-22 budget to convert a vacant authorized police officer position to administrative sergeant position. Again, we're looking at Q3 for that position to be filled, but it is in the budget. Next one is number 3. And this was an HR responsibility. Realizing that all of individuals have some form of implicit bias, the human resources staff will explore additional validated evaluation tools to use in the police officer selection process to determine whether candidates have a propensity to inappropriately act upon bias. And we have placed that in Q4, mostly because we would like to get the diversity, equity, and inclusion person on board and then help with that. And so that's got to follow. The next one's kind of the same. Human Resources Department will develop a more formalized training curriculum for officers regarding diversity and bias topics. Again, we'd like to get our DEI coordinator on board to help with that process, so that's also in Q4. Next one down is refresh the department pages of the city's website to ensure the information is clear, concise, and user-friendly for community members. So we're looking at that now. We're hoping to use our RPAC to help us understand how information may be easier to be obtained on our website. I know some people already had trouble finding where we're putting our monthly activity reports, so we'll have to figure out a way to make it a little bit easier to navigate our web pages. So we put that in Q4. It certainly may happen sooner than that. The next one is illegal. Adopt an ordinance prohibiting any member of the City of Ames organization from racial profiling or taking actions that are indicative of bias in the delivery of city services. And they are currently researching how to put an ordinance like that together. And so we're looking at Q4, as well as the next one, adopt a local ordinance that prohibits filing false reports or providing false information to police against an individual because of race or another protected characteristic. So same thing, they're researching how they might do that right now, and they're looking at a Q4 for that. The next one is Steve's responsibility. Adopt the city council approved recommendations from the ISU community and regional planning classes regarding the best communication techniques to reach underrepresented populations in Ames. And so working on that now, looking at that report and trying to pick out the best ways to accomplish that. A little bit of a question mark on when we'll accomplish that right now. So it's a little bit up in the air, but we have the report now. Next one, 17A, City Council to host community conversations with representatives from the marginalized communities in Ames and agencies that work with them, with the goals of obtaining input about the policy issues, not just policing issues, of importance to those groups, as well as establishing an ongoing communication pipeline with them. And we've begun the discussions with a number of people in the community to figure out how best to accomplish those goals. The next one is the city will adopt a policy no surplus armored military vehicles may be purchased or accepted for city use. And we're putting that in Q2. We're looking at a city purchasing policy that you'll approve then. That one's fairly easy to do. And the last one is make the topic of social justice part of the discussion when the city council once again considers asset funding priorities fiscal year 22-23. And that's in Q4, but we'll look at those 22-23 kind of things and prioritizations in 23 and 24.
So can I ask you 2 other questions?
You bet.
Number 5, the hiring of, or the conversion of the sergeant position.
Yes.
It says after other police officer positions are filled. Now, I know we're having issues with hiring, as so many other police departments are. Is that likely to delay the shift in that position a lot?
So we're down 10 positions right now in police officer positions. We have some conditional offers out right now. We're working through the background process. We've just started another process, and we're going to try a new process where we have an open till filled to see if we can build our numbers that way. So we'll test in October, November, and December, which is something we have not done before. I'm hopeful that we'll be able to hire at least and get back our 10 that we're down. If that all goes well and we get into the new year, I'm thinking probably around that March, April timeframe, it might be realistic then to be able to put that position in. But there's many things that can go wrong between now and then, and other people could leave or people don't pass the background process. But generally speaking, I think we're probably in line to get there around that timeframe. At least I'm hoping.
Once we're in a position to hire someone into that sergeant position, it should be able to go fairly quickly because we're working through the process right now to establish a civil service list for the sergeant position, because we have another vacant sergeant position that we're looking to fill.
It's a promotional position.
A promotion, yeah.
So it'll come from within.
Yep.
It was quicker.
The other thing I wanted to note, this is more for Steve's benefit, I think, is number 21. The social justice as part of the discussion for asset funding. We did vote to have a workshop or part of a workshop on that. So
that was my mistake. You might want to, we'll have to upgrade that. I think we're looking for a workshop.
Sometime before June. So I don't know, May of 2022 or.
Yep.
before
We have to
that.
put that on our list of workshops.
Yep.
Deb will be talking about the 23-24 priorities starting in June and July. So you want to do that before that. So May might be good. We'll have to see what we got scheduled. It's good probably to piggyback this with something else because I don't think it's going to take a 3-hour session.
No.
If we have to, we will do that. It's the only item. I had forgotten that. I'm sorry.
Any other questions for Chief on the prioritization? All right, we'll open up public input. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this particular item? It's 37A. We'll get 37B next. Seeing none, we'll close public input. Brian, do you prefer to go through 37B first, or?
We have a motion.
Yeah, I wonder if you want to just.
Oh.
You want to go through?
Yeah. I think you're separate. Actually.
Yeah, let's just go ahead and we'll entertain a motion on approving prioritization of action steps as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Okay, 37B.
Okay, so as we consider the list of approved recommendations from the Policing and Ames report, one of the most involved is the creation of this new committee, the Ames Resident Police Advisory Committee, or RPAC. The details presented tonight regarding RPAC are reflective of the direction that the council provided in November when we last discussed this. And I want to emphasize that one of the organizational values that city staff has is continuous improvement. And hopefully you will see that that value is threaded throughout the manner in which this committee is set up and the purposes of the committee. So to bring an ordinary resident perspective to the policies and actions of the police department, to suggest improvements to policies, to ensure that the actions of the police department meet the standards not only of the department itself, but of the community as a whole. So to accomplish this, RPAC will have several specific functions. One is to receive complaints and ensure that they are routed appropriately to the police department for proper investigation. This provides an additional avenue beyond what already exists to gather complaints. Another function is to review the departmental policies and procedures and provide comments and suggestions for improvement to the chief of police and the city manager. Under the ordinance, it would go to both individuals for consideration. Conduct outreach to individuals and groups in Ames regarding concerns related to public safety, rights and responsibilities in law enforcement interactions, and processes and resources for filing complaints. Provide feedback regarding potential commendations for officers in the instances when we have those under consideration. And then the key role, of course, is to meet with the chief of police after a complaint has been investigated, but before the decision has been made regarding what to do about that complaint, to discuss the investigation that the department undertook into the complaint and provide input, provide that resident perspective. So the 7 members of this commission, or of this committee rather, are proposed to have 3-year terms. The membership of this group, as compared to many of our other existing boards and commissions, will have some rather serious responsibilities, and the process for selecting them is therefore going to be more involved than that of a typical board or commission. We intend to have additional questions on the application to gather how the applicant will remain committed to the principles of impartiality, not be prejudiced, in favor of either the complainants or the police officers. We want people to evaluate the evidence that's in front of them and the policies that are in front of them to make their comments known. The members would also potentially be entering into closed sessions from time to time, which is something that not many of our other boards and commissions have to handle. So they would, from time to time, review confidential materials. So we need to have an expectation that the membership is going to be able to handle that responsibility and follow the regulations that we have, not only locally, but also state law regarding closed sessions and confidential materials. The ordinance describes that the membership of the committee is to be representative of the diversity of the community, insofar as that is practicable. And that will be a component of the evaluation process. Ultimately, like other boards and commissions, the mayor would be the person who would appoint or nominate the individuals to be a part of it, and then the council would have the opportunity to confirm those appointees. The committee would also, again, differently than many of our other boards and commissions, involve a significant amount of initial training and ongoing continuing education to understand contemporary policing, legal standards, the departmental policies, police equipment, the investigative process, use of force, and many other matters. The ordinance that has been drafted mentions specifically an organization called NACOL. There's a typo in the draft ordinance. It should be National Association for Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement. But we should take a step back here. There's a larger question about whether it's the right thing to do tonight to include NACOL specifically and call that organization out. So since the time that we drafted this ordinance and prepared the report, the staff has thought a little bit further about this and realized, there's some other resources out there in addition to NACOL that have information about how citizen review boards can operate and what types of matters they should get education in and information about. There's an international organization. There's the Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs. There are various academic research papers. There are a lot of other resources. So we're not opposed as a city staff to exploring NACOL further to consider the resources that it can bring to our proposed RPAC. But we think it would be more appropriate in that section 2.55, paragraph 3 of the draft ordinance to indicate that the subjects would be recommended by city staff rather than based on a specific organization. So that's just something that has come to our minds in the last couple of days here.
Specific, you'd strike the reference to
right. Strike the reference to NACOL specifically and indicate that staff would provide recommended.
But we'll consider them along with those other sources and coming up with our
certainly
curriculum, if you will.
Yeah. And part of this too is that there are many different flavors of community advisory boards, citizen oversight boards, all sorts of different ways that communities have approached this. Some of the resources are going to be relevant to the proposed RPAC and the way that it operates. And some of them are not going to be. Some of them are relevant to other models because there are so many different flavors out there. So we think that it would be best to not constrain ourselves to that specific resource. So finally, on an annual basis, it would be expected that the committee would prepare a report that the city council receives that outlines their activities. during the previous year, the complaints, the nature of those complaints, the demographics of the complainants, where we know that information, the list of the policies that were reviewed, the training that the committee has received, the outreach activities that they've conducted, and then any concerns that they may have regarding the outcomes of the complaint investigation. So if the committee feels that they provide input and that every time the input is not followed or not listened to, this is their opportunity to say, we think there's something concerning here. Or if they have a concern about the process or some such thing. So the council now has the opportunity to let us know if there are any concerns or modifications to this proposed ordinance. And then once it's approved and finalized, we would undertake the work of developing that initial training and the ongoing education plan. There would also be some work to do in preparing the application, since it would be a little different than how we typically do boards and commissions, and then figuring out how to hit the community with that opportunity and encourage people to apply.
I do want to emphasize in section 2.54, paragraph 3, I just want to make sure the public understands we're not going to deal with every complaint. In other words, speed limits, speeding tickets, overtime parking meters, those type of things won't be handled by this group. So there's a lot of complaints we receive that will handled by the chief, and we investigate ourselves. It'll specify in that subparagraph 3, actually, the categories of complaints that we dealt and handled by this particular committee. It's limited. So if you agree, if you have any other questions, you probably want to open up to other public comment, but we would need to change that wording, as Brian suggested, just in that one area from our recommendation.
So
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I don't really have a question, but I have a concern, and that's related to the chart that we just saw about the implementation and the comment that the underrepresented communities do not trust us enough yet to engage in conversations. So I'm wondering how we get people from all of the communities of Ames to be interested in serving on our PAC. Because I don't want this to just be, a bunch of middle-class white people serving on this committee. It needs to have more diverse representation. And so that's my concern. How do we get more involvement when we do create that committee?
Well, that's a good question, Gloria. I think it's been one that that this council has been committed to trying to reach out. And I think much to the credit of, your efforts and city manager's effort working with community regional planning, and we got this event I'm sure you'll bring up under council comments in a couple of weeks regarding trying to reach out, look for different ways to do it. But I think we'll also engage other individuals that we know of in the community and ask them to help us try and get that. I have tried that honestly, to try for representation on the Human Relations Commission. And I've also tried to do that. And so has the city manager through some of his meetings and the Ames, the Citizens Academy, to encourage people, to apply. And sometimes even, calling them and asking them or asking people to call. And there's just hasn't been an overwhelming response, honestly. And so we need help from everybody in the community. I know that Chief and Chief Saikashi 4 have asked, we need help to try and get people from, different population groups, Black, Latino, you name it, to apply for a police officer position. That's what we're looking for, to try and really broaden that base. And we can only work with what we have. And the same also occurred with the CAP, the Climate Action Plan. I was really looking for and trying to bring to the table for you to consider approving, a diverse group we could, but we only had applications that we had to deal with. But I think there's going to be an active endeavor. But I agree with you. We would love to have people from all different walks of life, so we just need to get the word out and use different vehicles to do that. So,
and actually, that raises a question related to the challenge of student positions. Is there a possibility of creating 2-year student positions so that you have some continuity as opposed to the 1-year student positions?
Well, the question was raised at the previous council meeting. I think our concern about 1-year positions is simply that there might not be enough time to gather, to orient yourself to all of the different components of what you would be responsible for. 2-year positions, that I think of course that person would have a longer period of time to get up to speed. If that's something that the council wants, I think we can work with that. It's hard to tell at this point. I think we know that there is a lot to learn, but we don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet until we do it. So it's certainly something we could try and then report back if we think that changes need to be made sometime in the future. I imagine that this whole concept of an RPAC is going to have a lot of areas that we might look at this a year from now, 2 years from now, and say, maybe we need to rethink how we operate with this particular component. And so we would come back to the council and say, we think that there should be a change here or there. And that could be a component too, is the terms. So if you feel strongly about it, I think, we can work with that and see how that works.
Well, it seems like you have a concern about the learning curve, the necessary training, and then the end of a 1-year term coming so quickly after someone's acquired that knowledge. And that was one of the things that concerned us on the Historic Preservation Commission, because commissioners were supposed to understand the various laws that impact preservation, and yet we had people coming on and then leaving, and it is very hard to create the kind of continuity that's necessary. But we've also seen, I think, in our Human Relations Commission with Madesh serving, he's been there now for 2 years. And so there are students who may be interested in serving a 2-year position. Certainly, even graduate students could be interested in serving. So, if there's a concern about the 1-year position, but we want to have students involved, that might be one way to do it.
The other point I'd make is that when we create a new commission, we have to do staggered terms initially so that we get, so some of the members will have a 1-year term, some will have 2, some will have 3, until we get through a full cycle of individuals so that they're not all leaving after 3 years or after 6 years. So we'll sort of have an opportunity for a natural experiment here to see how much somebody can pick up in that first year term that we're going to have for a couple of people in the first cohort of committee members. So we'll get a chance to try that, I suppose. I hadn't thought about that before.
Other questions?
Are you looking at 2 ways you can approach this? Just a 2-year term for anybody to apply, including students? Are you looking to say, make sure we have a student, in there during that 2 years, if we open up a 2-year term?
Well, I think that our previous discussions determined that since we have such a high percentage of our population that are students, that's part of diversifying the membership. So I would love to see us have at least one student member on that commission or the RPAC. But I can recognize the challenge of a 1-year because of that learning curve. So I don't know. I mean, I think we should have a dedicated student position on that.
I would be supportive of that too, Gloria. I think a 2-year term should give enough of a learning curve for people to understand all of the training and make good educated decisions on that committee. But I think the 1-year term would be a little bit steep of a learning curve for a student to handle. So I would be supportive of at least 1 2-year term on that committee.
So then we have to be very specific. Is that 2-year term solely for use of a student, or is it for a student or others? Another thought is, and I would hope we could have at least one student, on So I too am supportive of that. I did also think that the staggered terms, the 1, 2, and 3-year terms, might be an opportunity to try and get some students involved, get this, a trial run, and then working with student government, trying to get some freshmen who might be interested in this, that would apply and potentially be able to get on a 3-year term and provide a very, solid, run at it. So I just don't know if we want to be constrained by having one with just a 2-year term, but I don't know. It's just
I wasn't implying that would be the only opportunity for
Sure.
student membership, just that would ensure
Right.
that there's one position
Right.
for a student.
Just so you're aware, in the other commissions that we have that have a dedicated 1-year student term, I believe the language indicates something like, this 1-year term is set aside primarily for an ISU student, but the opportunity is there if there's no student who applies who's qualified, then anybody can be appointed to that position. That happens from time to time.
And that has been beneficial in a couple of commissions where we actually had someone who's not really been sure that's really what they want to do. So I said, well, let's try 1 year. And then if you really like it, then you can apply and be eligible to go ahead and go for a 3-year. And we've had people that transition from 1 year to 3-year terms because they really have enjoyed it and been very, benefited the Border Commission.
Along these lines, would you have concerns if the mayor simply had the power to appoint to either a 2-year or 3-year term? Is that something you'd want to think about, or? Because that would give flexibility generally here. If you had an applicant who is a student, then you could approve it without having to slot people into the special student 2-year term. Or
So if you put a student in 3-year term, you wouldn't have to have the 2-year term anymore, right? Or would you force?
right, it could just be part of the overall calculation of how to balance the committee.
Or appoint them and they end up resigning, after 2 years because they're graduating, for sake of discussion. We have to fill that slot. It does make it for a little more, it's a little clunky, in terms of having these strange terms. But the point is that, it's another option too.
So maybe, since you have to stagger on the startup anyway, maybe this is something that we could take under advisement, or the next council could take under advisement to deal with them.
I had just a couple of pragmatic questions. So Section 2.54 talks about the complaint review process. And so clearly when there's a complaint, this group is going to be activated. But is there sort of already an anticipation in terms of the frequency with which this group is going to be meeting? Is it a monthly expectation? Is it twice a month?
The ordinance indicates that they have to meet no less than 4 times per year. But it could certainly be more frequently than that for regular meetings, and of course more frequently than that if there are active complaints that need to be reviewed. I think we need to get a sense of what the time commitment looks like for going through the training and what the frequency of complaints are. I think we have an idea of the frequency of complaints that we receive currently. And the question is that number going to be impacted simply by having this mechanism available? Will we see an increase in the number of complaints because people have a greater opportunity or greater level of comfort in filing a complaint that they otherwise might not file? We just don't know. But we do think that at a minimum, it's important that they get together a couple of times a year. Let's say there are no complaints. The group needs to get together to stay up to speed on the continuing education components. And then obviously we have things that we will want them to review, policies. There will be work to do absent a specific complaint.
I think it's helpful if this is going to provide a meaningful overview, then the group has to be equipped with the tools it needs to provide that. So I worry a little bit, and this is something that's still to be fleshed out, but you have to have sort of everybody has to have these tools, and there's a learning curve here. And if we're going to have a group that's going to be providing oversight over police officers who go through formal training and ongoing training, we want this committee to have some level of training. I mean, it seems absurd for them not to have sort of a threshold, and that's still to be fleshed out. I had another just sort of technical question. So you mentioned the possibility of going into closed session, and I lost where that is. But anyway,
2.54, paragraph 4.
you're so good. Yep. So is there going to be an expectation that we have city attorney staff attending all these meetings, or only in certain situations?
I think we'll evaluate what the need is. I don't have an expectation that the city attorney's office staff would attend every meeting, but if there's a complaint that is going to require their presence, then I think that would be appropriate.
Okay. I just trying to think through the obligations of our city attorneys. They have limited resources. Just trying to think through that commitment as well.
And we'll have to think through too, not every complaint might be the kind that is going to require a closed session. We'll just have to see what the complaint is and what might be required.
Yep. Thank you.
If I could just make a comment here before we move further. I guess we'll have a motion here, but I think we should just take a moment to recognize that we're really privileged to be in this position right now. I think that we have that we're able to consider creating this committee from what I feel is really a position of strength in the community. It's based on the existence of really good community relationships. They're not perfect. Civic engagement is always really hard, but I know that a lot of people are going to volunteer to serve on this committee for very good reasons. And so I'm proud of the community for having established that relationship. And I just want to thank the city manager and the police department for having the confidence in the city to be able to do this without it. It's not coming from crisis. It's coming from, like you said, continuous improvement. And I think that that's just really to be celebrated.
Well said.
Okay, we're going to open up public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to address council on this particular item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public input. Any closing comments or questions? Otherwise, be open to, first of all, any changes or amendments to the ordinance as presented.
I would move to replace the reference to NACOL to a reference to staff recommendations.
Okay.
Second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion?
Is that the exact wording?
I think you just strike the National Organization for the Civilian Oversight of Law Enforcement and replace with city staff.
Which is like what Dave said. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Diane, on this be a voice vote, or does this have to be roll call for amendment to a ordinance? Roll call. Okay. All right. Roll call on the amendment to the ordinance, please.
Aye.
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 Okay. And I will enter any other changes to the proposed ordinance. Before we vote, I will tell you, council, that we're going to work really hard together. I mean, I will work, and take into account the request about the students, see what we can do on these terms. And again, we'll see. It may take us a year or two to, work through it, and we may have a little better, feel in terms of how we get these terms. But
John, on the issue of students, are we going to focus just on Iowa State, or we'd also consider DMAC? We have a substantial number of DMAC students here. Just making sure we think about the pool as broad as we can.
Agreed. Yep. I'm not going to narrow it just to one, but I think we'll try and definitely reach out to student government, and we'll let Trevor help us in terms of making that known as well too. So, yep.
But that sounds like something that we can deal with through an amendment after the first appointments and the kind of,
if we need to,
1, 2, or 3 year appointment for cycling purposes.
Yes, I think we're certainly going to indicate to you if we experience challenges in implementing what's been drafted here the first go around. So that's something we could consider at a later date.
Okay.
I just want to point out, so with that amendment, we would make that amendment to the second and third readings. It'll come back to you at a later date as well. So there's no challenge with passing it on first reading with the amendment, and then we'll come back and incorporate that into the second and third reads.
Just as procedural, council tonight can vote on the passage of an ordinance as amended. Is that correct? Yeah. Any other amendments? All right, entertain a motion on first passage of ordinance as amended, creating resident police advisory committee.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Thank you. And I think I would echo Chief, just the fact that, Dave, I really appreciate your comments. I think it's really true. We're from a position of strength and positive nature, not negative. And I remember you mentioning that even when before you were appointed chief. By the way, congratulations. First time you're here as officially as chief. But you said even if it wasn't adopted, it's something you're going to do, and just shows that you're really committed to working that way. And so we greatly appreciate that, and your staff.
Thank you.
Too. So, and their support of all these recommendations. Can you comment on that for a second? I think that you said we went through is that your staff is very supportive of all of what you're doing, right?
Yeah, I think as Brian pointed out, one of our values is continuous improvement, and I don't think there's any reason to worry about these recommendations because they are all a part of that. It's continuous improvement. We've already seen some benefits. Just putting out those first couple of monthly reports has already started some conversations, and I think they're good ones. And so I think the rest of these are going to be the same, and we're looking forward to it. I appreciate the support.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Brian. All right. Staff has asked if we could take a short break. They want to get something set up for item 38. So we'll take a short 5-minute break and then we'll reconvene. So we are going to take a break now.
Show and tell.
On to item 38, Downtown Plaza Ice Skating Ribbon. Good evening, Keith.
Yeah. Anybody up for some skating? In a few months we will be, right? So we went through a lot of information in the council action form, and I'm not going to go through each one of the things. I'm not going to take the time to go through the pros and cons of synthetic ice versus real ice and so on. What I will say is we did talk with the manufacturer of synthetic ice. We reached out to U.S. Rink Association, who Taylor Bassett, our ice arena manager, is a member of that association, just to try to get some feedback. We did reach out to areas that have synthetic ice. And we went up and we visited a place in Arden Hills, which was a training facility, which had a small section of synthetic ice. But really what it comes down to, obviously there's a difference in cost, which was listed in the council action form, but it really came down to user experience. From the people that we talked with, from our own experience being on the ice, you have to work a lot harder. You don't have that glide. And the comments where people put this in and they take it out in 2 or 3 years because people just aren't having a good experience. Prior, Jeff and Brian are talking about values, and one of our values is excellence. And we just don't think we're going to be providing excellence if we go with synthetic ice. So all of that said, our recommendation is, to proceed, with designing the downtown plaza with an ice ribbon, utilizing real ice. And then the second component of the motion, is that When we brought you the Confluence contract, it was for roughly $325,000. And one of the things that we did mention in that council action forum on July 27th was that if we do go with the real ice, there would be additional design fees of an additional 52,000 roughly. So those are the two motions, and I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody has regarding the ice ribbon.
And the 52,000 will come from where?
What was that?
The 52,000 will come from where?
It's just part of the overall budget for the downtown plaza.
Any questions?
I love the comments from the U.S. Rink Association. I think my favorite was Ice Ice Baby. Kind of succinct and to the point there.
Yeah.
Okay. We'll open up public input. Anyone want to address council on this item? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Keith is curious, will council be seeing progress design concepts in terms of how the area is going to be ice? Will be water features during the summertime? Will those be coming to council to see periodically, or how will that proceed?
Yes. Yep. So the reason we're bringing the ice to you right now is because this does impact a number of other features, the building, storage, all that kind of stuff. So we're bringing it to you right now. The goal, I think, is maybe in October, late October, maybe early November, that we would bring some concepts to council and say, hey, here's where we're going with the design. We are really working off of the concept, that we had in January, but there are some tweaks to it, and we're continuing to look at, because with the budget, looking at what we can do to maybe do things still high quality, but at a cheaper cost.
Remember, we have $3.7 million set aside, and I think the estimate's now 4.5, so we're about $800,000. Oh, sure.
Okay. All right. Hearing no further questions, I entertain a motion on resolution approving proceeding with the design of an ice skating ribbon utilizing real natural ice.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain a motion on resolution approving change order number 1 to increase the Confluence contract by $52,000 for additional design fees associated with designing an ice system utilizing real natural ice.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Thanks, Keith.
Thank you. Have a good night.
All right, moving on to ordinances. We have first passage of ordinance correcting Ames Municipal Code, Section 6.24, regarding terms of office for Mary Greeley Medical Center Board of Trustees. Going to open up public input. Is there anyone that wants to address council on this first passage of the ordinance? Seeing none, we'll close public input. Entertain a motion on first passage.
Who come first?
Second.
All right, roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay. And staff is requesting that second and third, that we waive rules and have second and third passages this evening. Is there a motion to waive the rules?
Move we suspend the rules.
Thank you.
Second.
All right. Those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, boy.
Oh. As I said, roll call, please.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. And Mark, I still get confused on this.
He wants another one.
Is that effective?
I want to, because we've just suspended the rules, I still think we need to have a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Okay.
So
Move we adopt the ordinance.
Second.
All right, roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. I'll get it right sometime, Mark. I guarantee you. All right. Item 40, proposal to adopt by reference to 2021 edition of the Uniform Plumbing Code and the 2021 edition of International Mechanical Code with state and local amendments.
Move on third.
We have a, actually need to move on.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
We want another suspension.
Yeah, so we're on second
move on
passage. Move on
second.
second. Thank you.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Aye.
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 Will we suspend the rules?
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance.
So moved?
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Okay. And then entertain a motion on second passage of ordinance inserting a new section 28.209B to adopt the cross connection control standards of the 2021 Uniform Plumbing Code, along with existing local amendments that are being relocated from Chapter 5.
Move on second.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Entertain a motion to suspend the rules.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. And entertain a motion to adopt the ordinance.
Move on third?
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 And item 41, entertain motion on third passage and adoption of ordinance number 4445, rezoning property of 525 6th Street from residential medium density RM to special purpose government airport district SGA.
Move on third?
Second.
Roll call.
Aye.
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 Thank you. Moving on, dispositions of communications to council. We have one item, and that was actually addressed or discussed under public comment by Susie Petra. You have an email from her. And it's my understanding that recommendation from staff is referred to for a memo. Is that correct, Steve?
That's correct.
I move that we refer the item to staff for a memo.
Second.
Okay.
So I have a question. So
Yes.
Steve, this isn't the first time that our city has looked at this. And
No, it is actually for many, many years. So you'll find that I'm very supportive of this. But it is a complicated study. It'll take some time because I want to find out what other cities are doing. I want to talk to the haulers too. I think we could stipulate to some things. I don't think you need to do a emissions study on this. I think we could stipulate that we will reduce our carbon footprint by going to something else. I think with the kind of report I would get, what I would get back, not the memo, but if I come back with a report to you, it would probably tell you the positive and negatives about going to it. But I have to have a little discussion with the haulers. It's maybe not as easy as you think. If we break it up into quadrants, how are we going to make sure that someone doesn't pay more if they live in that quadrant or other? But there's other cities who've probably done this. Got to check with the attorney, make sure we have the ability to give out these franchises and pieces. But I do want to tell you, this is a more complicated report than you think, and I'm very supportive of it. But the team that would work on this is now working on our other project. And I would like to get that done before you tell me to look at this. And that doesn't mean it's a year away, you understand?
Which project is that?
We're working on our resource recovery plan and the future of that.
It's not the CAP plan. It's
I'm sorry, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think we need to do the carbon footprint analysis of it. I think I can say that it will save us a reduce carbon footprint. So I'll come back with an amendment with you. I probably recommend that we do it, just so you know. We'd have to come back with an outline of the study. I mean, we'd come back with a study, but I can't commit to do it right now. I got to get this other study done first. You do a great job of layering new things on us, but we have to plan our work plan, and this is just something that'll take a little more attention. So it would have to follow the first report. But I think it'd be intriguing to look at it and see the world's changed, what other people are doing. But there are positive and there are benefits, and there's some negative aspects of it that you need to know about. So that would be all included in a comprehensive report we do. Don't think we have to hire an outside consultant to do this. I think we could do it ourselves through our own staff and doing some research. So I don't know if I've just bypassed a memo to you, but that's what I'd say in the memo. But I don't want to commit to do this right away. I got to do another report for you first.
And so can we just clarify? I mean, Susie said she had some very specific recommendations, and we referred her letter to staff. But what I'm hearing from you is that you're really taking the topic of the letter and you're writing a report on that topic, not exactly the specific recommendations.
If I would come back with a memo,
Yeah.
a memo wouldn't respond to any of those, because what we need to do is whether you want to commit me to do a study. You want to commit staff time to do a study, which would break down an analysis of these. Can we do it by quadrant? Can we do it by just one company going out for it?
Yeah.
What are the benefits of those? Changing, what are the benefits? What are the positive or negative things about changing it? It's a comprehensive study. So the question would be on the memo, do you want me to do a study?
Let's see, that would be the memo, and then we would decide.
Yeah, but I'm willing to do the study. I think it might be worthwhile to do the study. I just can't do it now.
Got it.
Right. So
Do you want me to have a memo from me to tell you we should do the
Yes.
study? Okay.
will your memo give us some sense of how much staff time is involved in this or not?
I won't know. It's substantial. I mean, enough that it will divert me from the other study we're working on first. I got to get that done first. Now I can get a better estimate of when we think that's going to be done, so when I could start it. So maybe I'll put this all in writing back to you.
Can we get
Sorry.
that?
I got a memo.
How about a memo?
I just want you to know where I'm going to end
All
up.
right. All right. Everyone understand the motion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. All right, council comments. Gloria, we'll start with you.
Well, John alluded to the fact that we will be having our first engagement festival, Play Ames, Imagine Your City, on Saturday, September 25th from 12 to 5 p.m. at 4 locations around the city. And the information on this engagement festival, which we're hoping is going to involve lots of kids and their parents and anyone else who is interested in learning more about engaging with the city and engaging in activities that can make the community a better place, can check out the city website for information on the event. And city council members will be available at the various sites to interact with residents who would like to talk to us. And city staff will also be available at the different locations.
Yes.
You can learn more about the climate action plan and the comprehensive plan and other things to do with how citizens interact with the city of Ames. So please come out.
Anything else?
I think that's it.
Okay. Tim.
Yeah, I'd like to promote an event that's coming up. The police are also co-sponsoring this. On Thursday, September 23rd, the Ames chapter, the NAACP, is sponsoring a program at 6 o'clock called Incarceration to Community Reintegration. This is a program on recidivism. And so we speak often about trying to reduce our prison and jail population in Iowa. And one of the ways in which that can be done is reducing the number of people who are reoffending and going back into our jail or prison system. This is unique. I don't remember this ever being done before. I think it's going to be attractive to a wide cross-section of the community. We've put together a very strong panel of speakers. Kevin Geis from the Matthew 25 House, Pastor Robert Knight, a board member from Butterfly Freedom House, and Jim Cameron, Ames probation and parole officer. So these are people who are extremely knowledgeable about the challenges that people have coming out of jail or prison. If people have a general interest in this, this is a terrific opportunity. This will be available to watch live on Facebook from the Ames chapter of the NAACP or the Ames NAACP website. Thank you.
What time is that?
6 o'clock, Thursday, September 23rd.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it. Thank you.
Rachel.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Amber.
Nothing for me.
David.
Not tonight.
Evan.
Nothing for me. Thanks.
Trevor.
Yeah, just a few things. So a few people have reached out to me about some projects in student government. The first one is doing a candidate forum with the school board candidates. So I'll probably be reaching out here in the next week or so when I have more ideas about what they want to do with that. And then the next was our director of sustainability for student government was interested in like a community garden between the city and Iowa State. So once they have reached out to me more about that, I will also be sending some more information.
All right.
That is all.
Thank you. Brian, could I ask you to come up and just give us a little bit of information on the 30th anniversary of Public Art Commission celebration? I don't have enough particulars, but if you can just, it's on the Wednesday, 22nd at 4 o'clock. I know I caught you off guard, but I thought it'd be good for people to know about it.
Well, it's the 30th anniversary of the Public Art Commission. There is going to be a celebration that's been organized by a committee of Public Art Commission members. There will be recognition of previous chairs of the Public Art Commission over the last 30 years. Some remarks by some of the former chairs about the history of the commission, how it got going. There will be a walking tour of some of the artwork in City Hall, led by members, current members of the commission. And then there will also be judging or announcements of the judging of a photography contest. And so we'll have all those works on display. It'll be in the City Hall Gymnasium, and it begins at
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock. The remarks at 4:45, if I remember correctly.
I think so.
And then it will wrap up by about 6.
What day is that?
Wednesday the 22nd.
Yep, 22nd of September here.
Yep. They do a great job, and I think with their just enhances our culture downtown or City Hall, and appreciate their efforts, and should be a good event. Thank you. And the day before, on Tuesday the 21st at 5 o'clock, there is I think it's a Suicide Prevention Expo. I forget the exact terminology, but there's I think his name is Kevin Hines, I believe. Is that right, Deb? You're checking it? Yeah. And it's virtual, and his presentation will be at 6 o'clock. And Kevin Hines is a nationally known speaker who actually attempted suicide by jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, and he actually survived. He's one of the few people that have survived that. And so I've been told he has a very compelling and story, and we just want to raise awareness of how we can help people with this situation. So, all right. With that, council needs to go into closed session. So, Mark, I think Tim has a question for you.
So actually, it's not my question. It's the Iowa code requires. Just thought I'd clarify that.
Yes.
Mark, do we have legal grounds for going into closed session?
Yes, we do. Under 21.5, I believe it's 1C of the the Code of Iowa, but the open records law, the council can go into closed session to discuss matters that are in litigation or threatened litigation.
Mayor, move we go into closed session.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Roll call.
Roll call. Thank you.
Aye.
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 Aye. All right. We'll be going into